Oh, goodness. Let's see what we can do here. Uh, okay. Let's see what we can do here. I had to turn it off because it did not want to, it didn't have enough juice. I hope it makes it through the service, okay? But I affirm it will. It's an affirmation, okay? um, I had a couple people at 9 o'clock say, what jokes do you have today? And I said, well, I don't have any. And they started to cry. And so what I did was I decided I would bring a couple, okay? The first one, these are about the Lord's Prayer. When my twin daughters were young, I taught them to say this prayer, the Lord's Prayer, before going to bed. As I listened outside the door, I could hear them say, give us this steak and daily bread, and forgive us our mattresses. The parents thought that was funny. One little boy who was in nursery school said, Our Father who art in heaven, how do you know my name? And one lady said, I remember as a child thinking this prayer was, give us this day our jelly bread. I'm sorry, it's the best I could do early, okay? Anyway, so let's get back to where we are and to the more serious nature of this. Thank you, you guys. I know. You're clapping, hoping I won't tell another one. I understand. So anyway, yeah. I didn't hear that anyway. Okay. That's probably good. As I was starting to prepare for this, and I usually start on Mondays and sometimes Sunday nights thinking about what am I going to talk about next week. And just get some thoughts in my mind, and I do a little reading and stuff like that. And, I thought about the art of prayer. And so I said, well, what I ought to do is probably go through the 5-step prayer method that Unity uses. And how do we use that to pray positively in an affirmative manner? And so I looked at that for a while, and then I picked up the Lord's Prayer. And I read that Jesus said, well, what happened was the disciples. Now, so if you ask a question about prayer, don't feel bad. The disciples said, how are we supposed to pray? Now, you would kind of think that these guys have been around Jesus for a while. They might understand that. But no, they said, give us a prayer. And what they were saying is, give us something simple, something we can understand, something we can use to enrich our own lives and help others. And so I decided that I would talk about the Lord's Prayer this morning from a different perspective, hopefully, because I know some folks are somewhat wounded by the Lord's Prayer. And I think there are two reasons for that. One is because they said it so often and it was such a ritual that they didn't get anything from it. Okay, it became boring, if you would. There are others who, I'm sure sitting here, loved it. When you hear Ronnie sing it, and it's absolutely gorgeous, by the way, and he was doing it again on Easter, it touches you at the cellular level. It's the music and the power of that. So, this morning, knowing that sometimes we are turned off, if you would, by the Lord's Prayer, I want to explain it in such a way that I hope it turns you on to the Lord's Prayer by the time I finish. So let's just kind of get into it. The first thing we ought to understand is that the Lord's Prayer was patterned, interesting enough, as a Jewish prayer. Okay? Jewish prayers have 7 sections to it. The Lord's Prayer has 7 sections. Now, it's interesting because Jesus happened to be Jewish that he used the format of a Jewish prayer, okay? But it is Christian in nature. It's probably the most often said prayer in all of Christendom, in every denomination, everywhere. And so it has a great deal of power to it if we take the time to understand it. The first affirmation is, Our Father who art in heaven. The first word, our. It's interesting. Jesus didn't say, my Father, which some say he's the only one that had the Father. He said, our Father. So he brought everybody in, and everybody is included into this. And that's a pretty important idea, I think, and point to this prayer. That he said it's our Father, not his Father, or that person's Father over there. It's everybody. By the way, everybody's Father. Not just Unity folks. I know, you caught it. Not just Unity folks, but everybody's Father. And then the second word is one that bothers some folks, and that's Father, because it has a connotation of patriotism. And that's what you have to understand. What did I say? Patriotism? I don't know. That's right. That word. Patriarchal in nature. And, well, for some it's patriotic to be male. But anyway, not appropriately, but it is, okay, for some. And so anyway, what we have to understand is that the word Father, again, has that connotation to it. And a lot of people in today's world, in our consciousness today, understand that it was a consciousness at that time. Now, we can just settle into that and let that go and use any word you want to if you want to. Jesus called the Father Abba. And so we can do anything we would like to do in using that. And as we do, we start to expand our thinking. That's just the way Jesus had to explain it that day and time, so that it was acceptable. Today we can say, love that art in heaven. We can say, Spirit that art in heaven. We can say, divine mind that art in heaven. We can say, divine expression that moves from heaven and in through us. So we have lots of choices, thank goodness, in unity. And what I would suggest to you is that what we really want to do is get to the idea and the metaphysical understanding. You see, God is the presence, the wisdom, and the power that is always available to all people at all times. That's good news. To all people at all times, and that includes you and me. The metaphysical interpretation is, I am now conscious of the infinite and eternal presence in whom I live, through whom I think, and with whom I create. That's what that's saying. I'm now aligning myself with that which created me, no matter what you call it. The second affirmation is, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed, through the years, has kind of had a reputation like, bow down to, be in awe of, fear. That's an interesting word to use with God. Fear God. Be careful what you say, what you do, because God's up there making a list, and he's going to get even with you if you don't do it the right way. However, what the word really means is wholeness and completeness when you go to the Greek. It means wholeness and completeness. Hallowed. So if we look at hallowed be thy name, what we are saying here is this presence in me is whole and complete. It is the activity of health that heals, of intelligence that inspires, of substance that prospers, and of love that harmonizes. This is Eric Butterworth. And by the way, I'll be quoting them, Eric Butterworth and Emmett Fox, both this morning, interchangeably with some of my own thoughts, and along with some other folks, just so you know that. Because if you read Emmett Fox, if you read the Lord's Prayer by Eric Butterworth, then you will hear some of this. I don't know how to say things better than they did, to be honest with you, so why try, okay? And so we have this, the presence in me is whole and complete. It is the activity of health that heals, of intelligence that inspires, of substance that prospers, and of love that harmonizes. Now there's a third affirmation. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. I'm glad that Jesus didn't say, instead of thy kingdom come, he says, you got to go to the kingdom. Okay? You got to go somewhere to find the kingdom. Matter of fact, what you got to do is die, and you'll find heaven. That's not what his message was. His message, obviously, as we all know, was that we want to bring the heaven, the absolute that God is, here on earth. Isn't that what we're really aspiring to? What we really want to do is bring that kingdom of heaven to earth and to experience that together. And we're not the only folks. There are other denominations that see the same thing. We see it a little differently in how it happens, but they see the same thing. Heaven on earth. We can't deny that. And we have that opportunity to be that force. So thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven says, I am the Creator's glorious possibility. I now let this perfect idea of me unfold in me and through me. My desire for betterment is my highest desire to let go and to let Spirit guide me, direct me, and sustain me. I remember because thou art, I am, and because I am, thou art. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. The fourth affirmation, give us this day our daily bread. You know, what that really kind of signifies is that what is necessary for life, and more broadly, if you would, every good thing sufficient for subsistence, is and comes from source. When we think that our job is our source, and we lose our job, we lose our identity. We misunderstand, and we can find ourselves thinking in a hopeless manner. Whereas what Eric Butterworth said to one person who came into his office and said, I lost my job today, he said, congratulations. I said, what do you mean congratulations? It's a great job. He's going to find a better job. And that's what happened. The person found a better job through Eric Butterworth's affirmation that there was this opportunity. What give us this day our daily bread really means. I have no existence outside of the presence of Spirit. I am divine expression expressing through me. I am one with my Creator, the source of all life. I can never be separated from the abundance of this universe. I claim my divine inheritance, and I daily manifest an abundance of all I need and desire. I live in the overflow of all that life has to offer me. That's where we are. That's what we are. That's who we are. We just forget it sometimes. And so I would suggest that you remember that. There is a fifth affirmation. And now Jesus started to meddle. He said, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Why in the world did he stick that in when everything was going so well? You know? And the truth of it is until we're able to forgive ourselves, we cannot forgive others. I really believe that with all my heart. I mean, I can do some, phantom forgiveness. That means you did me wrong, and so I'll forgive you for doing me wrong. And what Jesus taught is you didn't do me wrong. You were my friend, and you were teaching me something about how to live life better. So it's all attitude. It's all perception. It's all how I see things. When I first came into Unity, I had an experience which is really unique for me because I don't see and have many what I would call visions. And I had one in a meditation time. Edwina Gaines was, and those who know her, was leading the meditation. Powerful woman, powerful spirit. And I didn't know that when you went to a prosperity workshop that you're going to talk about forgiveness. Jesus is doing the same thing here. Okay? He's saying, here's one you got to handle. Because if you don't, you can forget all of it. You're not going to heal. You're not going to grow. You're going to stay stagnant. And I was brought up in a family where it was kind of like, oh, just forgive them. I had a family member that did something that my dad wasn't very happy with. But my daddy said, I remember him saying, just forgive him. It's okay. We'll be fine. And so I was brought up with that attitude, just forgive. And so I thought that I had forgiven everybody for everything. And in this vision, I saw a gray wall. And behind it, a little tree. I still remember that. And as I closed my eyes during this time and was meditating, all of a sudden on this wall, like in an Eastern language writing, came up one after another, slowly at first, and then after that, one after another, thoughts or ideas. And what I recognized during that time was what I was doing was I was beginning to really forgive others. And what I was learning is I had a lot of work to do. I had to forgive these folks. And I couldn't identify all of them. And every once in a while when I have a dream now, and it's about something from the past, I wake up and I say, I've got forgiveness work to do. That's what it's all about. And so I work at doing my forgiveness work. When I came out of that dream, I really did recognize that I was in the process not of forgiving hundreds, thousands of people, whatever it was. I was forgiving myself. And so the first thing I did is I turned to Vicki, who was next to me, and I said, "Please forgive me." And she said, with a tear in her eye, "I already have." And from then on, our marriage took on a different dimension. It moved in a different direction. It was more powerful. Not because of what I did, because of the fact that we came together solid mind. I mean, I even got to the point that I forgave my first wife. I think you ought to be stunned by that, okay? I mean, that's pretty good. All right? And it is the truth. Because I knew that she was to blame for the fact that our marriage didn't work. She was, definitely. And I had that all down in my mind. I had that written down in the laws of life because I'm a good guy. Must be something wrong with her. And when I did the forgiveness work, I found out, wow, it takes two to tango. And that really she was there for a lesson for me, to learn from, to grow from. And thank God, I think that's what I've done. And so I was able to say, "I forgive you, please." I really didn't even say, "I forgive you." I said, "Please forgive me." And it didn't make an instant difference in our relationship. But what it did do, I think, is bring it to a different level in a simple way. And so we can learn to forgive. And that's what Jesus was saying. What he was saying is, Spirit in me, the presence of unconditional love dissolves all conflicts. This presence of love removes fear, conquers the ego, and allows me to forgive myself, which allows me to release limited thoughts. Free myself from the self-imposed bondage of not forgiving, and frees me from being in at one with all of humanity. If all of us were willing just to forget and forgive, and I'm not suggesting forget somebody who harms you and put yourself back in that way, but just get to the point that you forget the emotion of it. That's what we're talking about. And when you can do that, you see, you have the power, because the power is within you, working through you. And it cannot work through us when we are not willing to forgive, when we're not willing to release. Then there's a sixth affirmation. Leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. And what that says, and I think it's pretty clear cut, but leave us not in temptation. The word has been lead us not into temptation. And as far as I am concerned, God does not lead us into temptation. We may have circumstances that happen in our lives, but that's not God testing us. Instead, I think what's happening is we're opening up a channel for ourselves to heal, for ourselves to see something from a different perspective, and to rise in consciousness as we do so. And when we do that, we then are able, I believe, to use the power of denials and affirmations. I affirm that my shadow side, when lifted into the light of truth, has no power over me. My affirmations support my spiritual growth as I seek the truth and find the truth and live the truth. I am free. I am unlimited. Then there's a closing summary, which became the seventh. It was not said by Jesus, but was said by somebody later who wrote it into the Bible in Matthew. And it says, "For thine," and you've heard this many times if you're Protestant. If you're Catholic, you may not have. "For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen." Now, I happen to like that because what it does is reaffirms everything else. It reaffirms the whole Lord's Prayer. It says, "I accept and realize that all I seek to be is found in my power to manage and direct my thoughts that come from divine mind, divine ideas, and divine expressions. Divine expression provides me with the strength to keep on, my power to achieve, and my faith to manifest the presence of God in me and in others as ever present, ever loving, ever powerful." When the disciples asked Jesus how to pray, he said, "Pray then like this." And I'm going to go through each of this, and I'm going to ask you just to repeat that after I say it. And then we're going to stop for a second and just think about and hold in consciousness what we're saying. Our Father in heaven, Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. On earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, or leave us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Say that together. And leave us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And so, just take a moment. And what I want to do is just suggest to you this week that each morning when you get up, or evening, whichever, that you take all of 2 minutes to say the Lord's Prayer with a consciousness of understanding that we are communing with Spirit. We are communing with Divine Mind. We are communing actually with one another. And it's through that light that I come to understand and see the Lord's Prayer as the art of prayer. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. Now, if our ushers would come